Engine room! We're taking on water!
A deadly crisis on a passenger ferry.
What's going on?
The damage was severe, and it was intensive, and it was fast.
The Queen of the North is filling with water.
Please, somebody help me! Help me! I can't get out!
You don't know how much time you have. You have no idea.
Not everyone gets off alive.
It just went down like the Titanic.
The search for answers takes investigators down a rabbit hole.
There was no way for us to prove what was the truth and what wasn't.
There she goes.
What's the real reason the Queen of the North went down? The passenger ferry, Queen of the North, is weaving its way through the rocky islands that line the west coast of Canada.
Ever get tired of sailing through here? There's no place like it.
Captain Colin Henthorne is in command.
Come to port to course 190.
To port 190.
Spent practically all of my working life at sea. There's something about being in command of a ship that is very difficult to explain to anybody who hasn't experienced it.
The ship is on a 17-hour overnight journey from Prince Rupert, British Columbia, to Port Hardy on Vancouver Island. The narrow passages of the rocky coast make this a trip like no other.
The BC coast is really, it's a mountain range that's been flooded, and you get to sail through it.
Navigating those rocky channels can be challenging.
Right, come to starboard, course 195.
For the first hour, Henthorne orders every course change.
Coming starboard to course 195.
Karen Bricker is one of the ship's quartermasters. It's her job to carry out the actual steering.
The course is 195.
Looking good.
With more than 30 ships, British Columbia's ferry service is the second largest in the world. And this is the jewel of their fleet.
The Queen of the North was special. Although we had ships which were bigger, she was the most beautiful.
She didn't look like a ferry. She looked like a cruise ship. She had a flared bow that was a big part of her seakeeping ability. And when people describe the ship as being an exceptionally strong ship, as she was.
The Queen of the North has two enormous 16-cylinder diesels, delivering over 15,000 horsepower directly to twin props. All that power means the luxurious 125-meter ship can slice through the water at up to 22 knots or 40 kilometers an hour. It's roomy too. Queen of the North can carry 650 passengers, though on this trip, there are only 59. Perfect for Shirley Rosette and Gerald Foisey, who are on a romantic getaway.
My dad was just very much in love with Shirley. They had so much in common. They loved being outdoors and being in nature, and they both had kids that they loved more than anything.
I'm glad we took this vacation.
Jill Lawrence and her husband Ryan McDonald are heading to visit her family.
I had ridden on the ferry many, many times.
4, a pair, 6.
But this was my husband's very first trip.
You're winning again.
It was going to be a springtime vacation, doing some golfing, and so I was looking forward to it.
Oh, it's just stunning.
It's absolutely beautiful. And at times, the coastline is very close to the ferry. And you think, how is this boat getting through this?
The crucial first stage of navigation is complete.
Steady on course 133.
Steady on course 133.
Nicely done, Captain.
Second Officer Kevin Hilton has been with BC Ferries for about 25 years.
Switch to autopilot.
Switching to autopilot.
The autopilot, despite the name, does not actually pilot the ship.
The autopilot will compensate for currents and wind to keep the ship on this heading until the crew enters a new one.
This crew were experienced in the vessel, and by all accounts, it should have been just a fairly routine trip.
Going to get some shut-eye. I'll be back before Tomi Channel.
When I left the bridge, it looked like it was going to be a really nice voyage.
You have command.
I have command.
Nothing untoward in the way of anything. I actually spent more time in the Queen of the North than I have in any house that I've ever lived in. And that has some sacrifice to it.
Lynn Cloutier is a ship's cleaner.
Hey, Lynn, how was your workout?
Let's just say I won't have any trouble sleeping.
I hear you.
She's done her shift for the day.
It's like a family because you work with them 12 hours a day and 14 days straight. We get really close to each other.
Good night, ladies.
The ship settles into the quiet part of the journey. The bridge officers spell each other off so they can take their meals. Fourth Officer Carl Lilgert returns early from his break and relieves Second Officer Hilton.
Speed 17.5 knots. There's no traffic reported, but there is a southbound vessel ahead. Got it?
Enjoy your break.
It's a few minutes past midnight.
Prince Rupert traffic, Queen of the North.
Queen of the North. Traffic, go ahead.
In 2006, Marine Traffic Control doesn't have detailed radar in remote areas, so the fourth officer has to report their position.
Yeah, Prince Rupert traffic. Queen of the North, just approaching Sainty Point, over.
When the ferry reaches Sainty Point, it'll have to make a slight course adjustment to port. After that, there's a long straight stretch before the next turn.
You have 4 or 5 channels all converging in this one area, so it's a little bit of an area of concern. This is why vessel traffic services are keeping a very close eye on what vessels are coming and going.
Queen of the North, Prince Rupert traffic, roger. You may see Tugcastle Lake. They're running slow with 23 sections of logs. Over.
The traffic controller warns them there's a tugboat in a nearby channel. The crew will have to keep a lookout. It's about 20 minutes past midnight. Everything seems routine. But it's not.
Oh no.
Somehow, the Queen of the North has hit rock.
I knew that we had gone aground, and I knew the damage must have been bad.
What's going on?
Second Officer Hilton races back to the bridge. The throttles are at full ahead, so he pulls them into reverse. But there's no effect.
All large ships are about momentum. And the faster that large mass is moving, the more damage is going to be inflicted if there's an accident.
It was just bang, 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 bang as it hit.
The ship slams into rock. Again and again, ripping its hull open.
The alarm bells were ringing. The mates are all running forward to get to the bridge.
Below decks, the ship is rapidly filling with water.
The damage was severe, and it was intensive, and it was fast.
Bridge! Engine room! We're taking on water! Lots of water!
Icy seawater floods into Lynn Cloutier's cabin. She knows she has to get out.
A big crash came down. My steel locker came down and blocked my doorway.
The heavy locker has sealed off Cloutier's only escape route.
I thought that last hit, we hit the bottom of the ocean because it sounded like it settled.
Please, somebody help me! Help me! I can't get out!
And then I thought, that's it. We all gonna die.
The passenger ferry Queen of the North is adrift and rapidly taking on water. The bridge crew is struggling to get a handle on the emergency, and Captain Henthorne realizes he needs to prepare for the worst.
I could see my chest moving in and out with every beat of the heart. I literally thought that I would not be able to speak. But I picked up the microphone and announced all passengers and crew to come up to deck 7.
Muster stations, muster stations.
Proceed to lifeboat stations on deck 7.
This is no drill.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to leave that purse here, please.
Is this serious?
Muster
Is this a
station,
drill?
please. Deck 7. Please listen to the captain's instructions.
I was
Thank you.
absolutely panicked. My husband was very calm, but I was panicked.
I thought we had just run aground. And that's why maybe why I stayed so calm, because there's no panic. This boat is just sitting here.
Traffic, this is Queen of the North. Queen of the North. Queen of the North.
We have run aground south of Stony Point.
Stand by for position.
The second officer radios for help. He needs to give controllers the exact location of the ship.
53, 19, 29,
113, 29.
37.
This can't be right.
The coordinates don't make sense to the controller.
Queen of the North, say again your position.
Below decks,
Somebody please help!
Lynn Cloutier's cabin is still filling with water,
Help me, please!
and she hasn't been able to budge the locker blocking her door.
This is crazy. Why this happened?
Somebody please! Somebody please, I can't get out!
Queen of the North, say again your position.
In the chaos,
Our position is...
the crew tries 3 times to communicate their coordinates to traffic control
What's the other part of that?
13 west.
13
without
west.
success.
Queen of the North, the position you gave me is not correct. It places you in headed straight. What is your position?
South end of Sainty Point.
Henthorne gives his best estimate so rescuers can start searching for them.
Our list is increasing. Send assistance immediately.
Roger, we'll put out a broadcast on your behalf.
The nearest Coast Guard vessel is an hour and a half away.
Mayday relay, mayday relay, mayday relay.
Traffic puts a call out to any vessel that might be closer than that. The people of the Gitgat First Nation waste no time in responding. Their remote village of Hartley Bay may be far from everything, but it's just 20 minutes from the Queen of the North.
The radio is a whole part of our life. That's the quickest way we can get a hold of anybody in any kind of emergency.
The Gitgat immediately scramble their fishing fleet.
By the time we left and got our boats out on the water, I started thinking, how many passengers are aboard, and by the time we get there, was there going to be anybody in the water?
Time is running out. The Queen of the North is steadily sinking lower. The water level is now high enough to start flooding in over the vehicle deck.
Copy that. It's above the rubbing strake.
The rubbing strake is a band of steel that runs all the way around the ship. It's like a big bumper.
Okay, time to go.
Once that's below the waterline, that ship is doomed to sink.
Commence evacuation.
There's nothing that's going to save it.
I need confirmation when all the cabins have cleared. And I need a head count.
All the crew knew what kind of serious trouble we were in.
The crew checks the passenger cabins to make sure everyone is out.
Hello, is there anybody here?
You don't know how much time you have. You have no idea what's going to happen next, except that I knew the ship was going to sink.
And there was nothing else. No noise, except I can hear water running.
Below decks, Cloutier, still hopelessly trapped, is starting to suspect there's no one coming to help her.
It's funny when you think you're not going to make it, your head just go, and you're thinking of your kids and your grandkids, and you don't think you're going to see them anymore. I have to try to get out of here.
For her grandchildren, Cloutier decides to try again.
I worked myself to the edge of the locker to get to the back of the wall so I could lift it. I screamed and tried to push as hard as I could, and it finally went sideways.
Cloutier is free.
There you go. There you go. Keep moving. Keep moving.
One raft after another was launched. Lifeboat was launched.
All right, take your life jackets. Keep moving.
As the situation deteriorates, efforts shift from preparing to abandon ship to actually getting 101 passengers and crew into lifeboats as quickly as possible.
Keep moving. Keep moving. Lynn, are you okay?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, take the life jacket. Let's go to the lifeboat.
By this time, the ship had sunk quite a ways.
Let's go. Everybody to the lifeboats. Let's go.
Captain Henthorne isn't ready to leave yet.
Anybody here?
He checks once more to see if anyone's been left behind.
I ran through the passenger areas.
Abandoned ship!
I wasn't a thorough search, but it was a quick last look around.
Henthorne has found no one else on the ship.
Right down to the very end when I climbed down the ladder, I believed that we had evacuated everybody.
Less than an hour after striking a rocky island, the Queen of the North is going down. She's drifted into a deeper part of the channel, and there's nothing the passengers and crew can do but watch and wait.
Where the rafts were already lashed together, and we could see the ship sinking lower and lower and lower.
Jill Lawrence is alone, separated from her husband, Ryan.
Ryan insisted I get on the first lifeboat. He said, "You go, I'll be fine." I remember holding on to each person on either side of me, like holding their hands. I had no idea who they were or anything, just for contact with someone.
We all got off the boat relatively quickly, but I was sitting there getting more and more nervous.
I was alternately praying that some miracle would save it and praying that it would just hurry up and go so I didn't have to watch.
Okay, double check that head count ASAP.
The evacuees are adrift nearly 100 kilometers from any city, and the Coast Guard is still an hour away.
There were people who needed medication, and people were getting wet, and they're cold.
But in the distance, the sound of rescue. The boats from the Gitgat First Nation have arrived, led by Edward Robinson.
We've been mariners all our life, so we just wanted to get out there and help in any way we could. I think it was about 5 minutes after we arrived, and she was going right under.
The ship's final moment has come.
It was really sad to see. You can hear the dishes, the crash, and it sounded really fast.
There she goes.
I said, our beautiful ship is going.
And the windows started to blow out. You could see spray coming out of them. And from that, it just went straight down, just like this. To me, it seemed like more of a salute as she left.
Someone yelled out, "It's gone." It just went down like the Titanic.
Everybody just sat there really silently, you know, because he couldn't believe that it actually had sunk.
The Git-Gat start ferrying survivors to land in their fishing boats. The Coast Guard arrives to help too, but it's still hours before loved ones are reunited.
It was pretty emotional when she showed up, yeah. It was really, really good to see her.
The passengers and crew become guests of Hartley Bay, a village of 200 people.
The people of Hartley Bay were just amazing. I'm sure every house brought clothes and food.
Everybody in the village took their cell phone out and spread them out on the table for people to use so they could call their families and let them know they were safe. It was superb what they did.
But something is weighing on the captain's mind. The Queen of the North didn't keep a detailed manifest. He only has the total number of crew and passengers on board, 101. Henthorne is soon struggling to confirm that everyone escaped.
I need another head count right away, please.
We were counting all the time, and we kept getting different totals. Sometimes more than we were supposed to have, sometimes fewer than we were supposed to have.
Queen of the North? Gotcha.
3 time zones to the east in Gatineau, Quebec.
Gill Island.
Transportation Safety Board Manager of Marine Investigations, Ken Potter, has the same question.
I got the call as manager at about, it must have been about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, saying the Queen of the North had sunk. And initially, we were asking how many passengers on board.
How many? How sure are you of these numbers?
When we queried later in the morning, we were actually getting different numbers back. At first 102, then 104, then 98. And it became readily apparent at that point that BC Ferries did not know how many people were actually on this vessel.
Get me some firm numbers.
It took some time, but the company was able to come up with a list of everyone on board. And we're checking off against that list, and it was established that we had a count of 99 only.
2 passengers, Gerald Foisey and Shirley Rosette, are never found. They are presumed to have gone down with the ship.
My mother and my sister and I were just very lost in a sense. There were so many unanswered questions.
It was just a very difficult time for our whole family, both my dad's family as well as Shirley's. And I think with me being so young at the time, I couldn't quite wrap my head around the idea that he had actually passed away.
A fatal accident on the second largest ferry system in the world demands a major investigation. Heading the team in the field will be senior investigator Raymond Matthew.
Hey, Ken. Good to see you.
Raymond, great to have you on board.
Thank you.
Let me show you what we've got.
Okay.
Raymond Matthew is one of the most upright people I've ever known. He's absolutely dedicated and dogged when it comes to following up leads.
The key question is how the ferry ended up where it did, striking the rocks at Gill Island.
How on earth did they get so far off course?
What was the weather like? What was the visibility like? How many ships were in the area? And what crew were on the bridge?
The Queen of the North hit an island at nearly full speed of 17 knots. You have to ask yourself, how could you hit an island?
2 people died, right? So I just wanted to find out what happened.
There she goes.
What's going on?
Investigators face an enormous challenge in determining what caused the loss of the Queen of the North.
Bridge! Engine room! We're taking on water!
It doesn't carry a black box voyage data recorder, which would have captured navigational data and conversations on the bridge.
Send assistance immediately.
So when it sank, its secrets sank with it.
Baker at this time, ETA Pit Island Light 2235. Over.
The ship's radio communications, however, were recorded by Marine Traffic Control.
Traffic? ETA, Sandy Point.
2320. Over.
Queen of the North, Prince Rupert traffic. Roger.
They only keep their recordings a short while. Investigator Raymond Matthew has to act fast.
The first people that I spoke to that night was Marine Traffic in Prince Rupert, and tell them to hold all the information for us, all conversations, all tracks, so that it wasn't overwritten.
Matthew's quick thinking has given the TSB the only hard evidence they've got.
Queen of the North, traffic, go ahead.
Brief glimpses into the ferry's final voyage.
Prince Rupert traffic, Queen of the North, just approaching Sainty Point. Over.
Nothing out of the ordinary there.
19 minutes of radio silence follows. And by the time of the very next radio call,
Traffic, this is Queen of the North. Queen of the North.
chaos has broken
We
out.
have run aground south of Sainty Point. Stand by for position. 53, 19, 29, 113, 29, 37.
Investigators hear the crew struggling to give their location.
Those coordinates are not right.
Queen of the North, the position you gave me is not correct. It places you in Hecate Strait. What is your position?
There's some obvious confusion here.
The chaos and the panic of the accident probably played a role.
Our position is...
But the crew who were operating the ship should have known their position at all times.
13 west.
13 west.
On the Queen of the North, they had the most modern equipment to let you know of all the dangers that are coming your way. They have a GPS, global positioning system, and electronic chart space systems, the ECS.
The Electronic Chart System, or ECS, should have shown the crew their exact position throughout the voyage. So how did the ship go off course?
Oh no. Steer! 109!
Investigators turn their attention to the crew members,
Thank you for coming in.
especially the two who were alone on the bridge during those last critical moments before the accident.
Relax. Then just tell me what happened in your own words.
During incidents and accidents, people have a tendency to hide information, right?
Whenever you're ready.
For some of them, it's panic. So you have to put them first into their comfort zone.
I was a bit tired, but I thought everything was fine until we saw the trees.
Investigators review the crew's records. Quartermaster Bricker had been off sick for a few days before returning to work the night shift.
Night shifts are never easy.
Barry Strouch is an expert on human factors in transportation accidents.
Fatigue has been shown to have considerable effect on cognitive performance.
She could have been tired.
It degrades our ability to be alert, to concentrate on things, to focus. And the thing about fatigue is that you don't have to be falling asleep to be subject to fatigue.
The possibility the quartermaster was fatigued is worrisome, but it can't be the whole story. It wasn't her job to decide when to turn. That was Fourth Officer Lilgert's job.
There's a saying in the accident investigation field that human factors, not human error, human factors is involved in 80% of all accidents that are out there. I don't believe that.
Please, have a seat.
I believe they're involved in 100% because human beings design ships, they build ships, they operate ships.
Fourth Officer Lilgert tells investigators they changed course at Sainty Point, just like they were supposed to.
Yeah, that's correct.
As he recalls, it was all by the book.
Steer 109.
Steer 109. 109.
Nevertheless, somehow, the ferry ended up far off course.
We were looking at the course changes that were necessary, and we realized that the actual track of the vessel led directly to where it struck the island.
In other words, it looks like the ship traveled in a straight line until it hit Gill Island, instead of turning at Sainty Point as planned.
So, can you explain that to me? I don't understand it either.
None of the crew can offer a satisfying explanation.
The first thought that came to me was, they had 2 radars and the ECS system. What could have malfunctioned?
Investigators comb through the ship's records, looking for any sign of an equipment problem that might explain the disaster.
Hey, look at this.
The ship just had a complete overhaul, including the addition of a new autopilot.
The autopilot installation that we did during the refit did change some aspects of the operation of the autopilot, but whenever we change anything like that, the crew are briefed by the technicians on the change of procedure.
Switch to autopilot.
Switching to autopilot.
But the company did provide training on the new system, and the crew had been sailing for 6 days with no hiccups.
The radars, the alarms, the steering systems is all checked. There was no complaint of any of the equipment malfunctioning.
If none of the equipment failed,
Enjoy your break.
something else must have gone wrong on the bridge that night.
The narrative of the night from the 4th officer and the quartermaster is that they were watching the radar, they were doing all the things they were supposed to be doing, including an alteration of course. So if all these things are true, how could you still hit an island?
Oh no. Steer 109!
Investigators need to prove for sure whether the bridge crew input the turn at Sainty Point or not.
What's going on?
Was the ferry's grounding a failure of the ship or the crew?
The TSB now has conflicting evidence. They need data. They need really firm, hard data beyond people's accounts. But it's on the bottom.
In their search for answers, investigators are forced to take extreme measures.
It's on the bridge, right here.
They decide to send a remotely operated underwater vehicle 425 meters down to try and recover the ECS, or electronic chart system. Its data could crack the case, if it's intact.
It is critical we get this.
The ECS is hard-mounted inside the ship's bridge.
An ECS is, by and large, just a PC, and essentially that's what we were dealing with.
It's not shock-proof.
We have to go in through the window.
Or waterproof.
The ECS was very crucial because without that, there was no way for us to prove what was the truth and what wasn't.
Investigator Raymond Matthew directs an ROV from a support ship floating high above the wreck of the Queen of the North.
Keep going, we need to get to the bridge.
They're trying to retrieve the sunken ferry's navigation computer, the electronic chart system, or ECS.
What the Transportation Safety Board needs is they need to get access to the ECS system, because that's the track, that's the actual track of the vessel.
The ECS should have recorded every move the ship made.
Here we go.
It's under 1,400 feet of water. What are the chances of that data being intact?
They locate the ship, sitting upright in the silt, almost half a kilometer below the waves. They need a way in.
Ship's bridge windows are made of armor glass, essentially to stop waves and that sort of thing from penetrating the bridge in heavy seas. But we needed to reach in and pull out that computer.
Somehow, they've got to break through those windows.
Give it all you got.
In the end, we used what's called a chipping hammer. It's a $3 hammer that one of the deckhands on the ship said, well, why don't we try this?
The unlikely tool gets them inside. But the delicate computer still has to survive the slow trip to the surface.
When we brought the ECS up through the window, at one point, the operator said, look, I have to rest it on the windowsill for a little bit. I was pretty scared.
If you remove anything electronic from salt water and expose it to air, it immediately starts to deteriorate. So in this case, our engineers were giving us, probably less than 50% chance.
The moment the computer comes out of the water, the clock starts ticking. Technicians must work quickly to try and bring the hard drive back to life.
The engineers that we were working with had changed the bearings on the drive, basically overhauled it, and then immediately downloaded it.
The hard drive survives just long enough to give up the data they need.
And then apparently the hard drive, it fried.
With the data in hand, the team should be able to recreate the path the ship followed.
Low tide was 2332.
That file that we took off the electronic chart system was plugged directly into the simulator. The only thing that would have had to have been manually inputted was weather.
Air temperature was 7 degrees Celsius.
We recreated the wind and all that stuff to see what the Queen of the North would have seen. We had to find the truth whether the alteration was made at Sainte Point or not.
Okay, let's see what we got.
I didn't know what we were going to find till the moment we did the playback.
Prince Rupert traffic, Queen of the North.
The electronic chart system has captured the ship's position and every turn it made throughout the voyage.
Queen of the North, traffic, go ahead.
Investigators check that information against the crew's radio calls to shore.
Yeah, Prince Rupert traffic, Queen of the North, just approaching Sainte Point, over.
That's odd.
They notice something unusual about the timing.
He called that turn in about 3 minutes early.
Course adjustments are usually called in once the ship is in position, but the fourth officer made his call before the ship got to Sainte Point.
Here comes a turn.
The ship steams straight past the turn.
As they came to Sainte Point, they were supposed to alter course to port, and that alteration was not made.
I guess we got our proof.
Nobody, no professional mariner plans on being in an accident. They do just the opposite. They intend to operate safely and professionally.
Investigators suspect that because Lilgert called in the course correction 3 minutes early, he gave himself time to forget to actually make the turn.
It is quite possible that somebody could say they're going to do something and then forget that they didn't do it.
Almost 14 minutes after missing that turn,
Oh no!
when Lilgert realized they were about to crash,
Steer 109!
another critical mistake.
Switch to hand steering!
Standard procedures went out the window.
It wasn't usually the quartermaster's duty to switch the steering over. Normally a quartermaster would have been at the wheel ready for the changeover, and it would have been the officer to watch changeover.
Switch to hand steering!
In the panic of the moment, Lilgert may have decided to steer the ship himself, leaving Brickert to do the changeover.
He asked her to do it, and she was unfamiliar.
Bricker was put on the spot at the worst possible time.
What's going on?
Investigators now understand how the crew could have momentarily forgotten the turn.
Get the captain! Get the captain!
But how could they continue to steam ahead for 14 minutes without noticing their mistake?
It's incumbent on mariners to know where they are at all times and to know what's around them. I mean, that's really the focus of the investigation. There had to have been something unusual that would cause them to lose situational awareness.
When a person makes an error or a slip, there's always an underlying condition. So we're looking for a condition that would have allowed that to happen.
Unexpected information about the crew
Matthew here.
adds a troubling dimension to the investigation.
When did all this happen?
We did learn that the quartermaster and the fourth officer had a relationship, and just before the incident, the husband of the quartermaster had found out.
Investigators are forced to consider the unthinkable. Did an extramarital affair lead to deadly distraction on board the Queen of the North. An investigation into the sinking of the Queen of the North has captured the public's imagination. Rumors of a relationship between the fourth officer and one of the quartermasters have ignited a media firestorm. The Transportation Safety Board needs to provide real answers.
We did go back and re-interview crew members with the ECS playback and have them walk us through what we were seeing on that screen.
Anything you want to tell us?
I wish there was more I could do to help.
It is frustrating because 2 people died. In my mind, when the ship hit the rock, he knew that he hadn't made the alteration.
Carl Lilgert sticks to his story.
Can a relationship explain an accident? Yes, it can. Does it explain this accident? There's no evidence to that effect. And investigators need to distinguish between facts and rumors.
With no hard evidence the affair played a role in the accident, investigators focus on what they can prove about what happened that night.
I have nothing to say.
And the one thing investigators have been able to prove is that neither Lilgert nor Bricker was paying proper attention to where the ship was going. And as it turns out, proving what they weren't doing is enough.
No. Steer 109!
Mentally, both of them were not there. They didn't realize what was happening.
What?
Switch to hand steering!
If a proper lookout and if a proper watch was being kept, the vessel would have seen the island with plenty of time to turn.
The Transportation Safety Board and the courts agree the accident happened in part because a proper watch was not maintained on the bridge.
Get the captain! Get the captain!
It's obvious that they weren't paying attention to what was going on. That's the most basic fact.
After the accident, several bridge crew lose their jobs, including Captain Henthorne, Second Officer Hilton, and Quartermaster Bricker. Fourth Officer Lilgert is convicted of criminal negligence causing death. He's sentenced to 4 years in jail.
It was a big investigation, and for me, I was happy when we found the ECS. The ECS proved to us that the alteration wasn't made. We found the reason for the vessel sinking.
The outcomes from this investigation, I think, have had a long-term effect on safety.
The sinking of the Queen of the North also sparks broad changes at BC Ferries.
One of the most immediate changes we made was that we put 2 officers plus a lookout on the bridge. We also instituted new procedures around how we count and record passengers.
The Transportation Safety Board's final report helps to bring in a huge step forward. Voyage data recorders on every vessel in the BC Ferries fleet.
This would have dispelled any gaps because it's evidence. It's firm, recorded, protected evidence of exactly what was said and what was done on the bridge.
But for many who survived the sinking of the Queen of the North, it's the uncertainties that haunt them, despite Lilgert's prison sentence.
I didn't even care if he went to jail. All I wanted to know was what happened. I don't care if you were in a heavy conversation together and you missed the point. Come out and tell us really what happened.
I tried to be the person I was before the accident, and but I'm not. I guess the PTSD, the anxiety takes a toll on you.
For their rescue of the ship's survivors, the people of Hartley Bay received the Governor General's Commendation for Outstanding Service, one of Canada's highest honors.
I was really proud of the community. We still get compliments out in the world there when we're out.
The memory of the 2 people who were never found will live on.
We took the crosses that my dad's old work made for him and Shirley and put them up on the rock at Gill Island. On my dad's cross, it says, "May you soar on the wings of eagles." Now, whenever we see two eagles together, we think of Dad and Shirley and feel like they're with us.
A 22-minute trip on a Staten Island ferry
Everybody back!
ends in disaster.
It sounded like a bomb exploded on the boat.
Everything was just completely wiped out.
Everyone, that way.
Chaos and terror.
Am I looking for someone who might have set a bomb off?
Acts of selfless heroism.
We got somebody under here.
And a race to find the truth.
The pressure is always on. Was it a terrorist attack?
Until one tip
The assistant captain said that.
breaks the case.
First time I've ever heard anything like that in any investigation.
Manhattan is a people magnet. It has a population of 1.5 million, and about 2 million more come to visit or work every weekday. Many of them travel via the Staten Island Ferry service. The fleet carries more than 60,000 passengers a day.
Staten Island Ferry, probably one of the most iconic symbols we have in not only New York, but probably in the United States. A big orange boat that floats back and forth, carrying thousands of people.
The trip across New York Harbor from Manhattan to Staten Island takes just 22 minutes. And the New York City's Department of Transportation keeps up to 5 ferries in service around the clock. Passengers ride for free and get to see the sights.
I had been taking the ferry since I was a little girl, and I love the ferry. You see all the tugs and the boats and the cruise ships and the Verrazano Bridge. It's great.
October 15th, 2003. The Andrew J. Barberi, one of the biggest ships in the Staten Island fleet, is getting ready to leave Manhattan's Whitehall terminal for its 3 o'clock sailing. Captain Michael Gansis is in charge.
Windy day.
His crew of 14 includes Richard Smith as assistant captain.
Visibility's perfect, though.
Smith, an experienced mariner himself, will be at the helm on this crossing.
There's a lot of responsibility that these captains and crew have to deal with. Is the responsibility of carrying human life on board.
The Barberi carries 6,000 passengers during peak times. But rush hour is just starting. On this trip, there are only about 1,500. The first wave of commuters heading home to Staten Island after work. Audrey Biazzi is one of them.
That early group that I was with were all the workers, the construction workers, because construction, starts so early.
It's barely 2 years since the World Trade Center was destroyed in a terrorist attack. And the city, with its altered skyline, is only starting to recover.
The whole downtown area was still a mess. We had a lot of scares going on, a lot of subway scares. It was a very, very difficult time to be in New York.
Hey, Frankie. Wanna find a seat?
Electrician Henry Benedritti is a seasoned regular on this route.
I took the ferry every day, Monday through Friday, I'd say, for years. And you see the same people daily, but there was never any acknowledgement of seeing each other every day, not even the nod of a head.
But today, among the hundreds of other passengers, Henry's bumped into an old friend he hasn't seen in years.
I knew Frankie Sullivan for a long time. He was an apprentice when I first met him. Frankie was just gonna be married 20 years. It was just gonna be his 20th anniversary. And he was one of the nicest guys you wanna know.
I'm heading to the other side.
It was all yours.
Got it. See you shortly.
Once it leaves Manhattan, the Barbary will navigate around Governor's Island and then head southwest to the St. George Terminal on Staten Island. The Andrew Barbary travels back and forth between the two terminals all day long, but it never has to turn around. The ferry is completely symmetrical. It even has two identical pilot houses, one on each end of the ship. Assistant Captain Smith is commanding from the Staten Island pilot house. For the trip back, the Manhattan end will become the front of the ship, and Captain Gansas will take control. Once the passenger decks have been secured, a deckhand comes up to serve as a lookout, an extra pair of eyes to scan the harbor.
New York's one of the busiest ports on the East Coast. It's a very, very busy port with commercial traffic, so you need to be on top of that.
Any traffic? All clear.
A lookout is a person that is supposed to be exactly what it says, looking out and making sure that the vessel stays out of harm's way.
That's full ahead.
Down below, the chief engineer keeps an eye on the engines. 7 minutes into the voyage, the assistant captain takes the ferry past the route's most famous landmark, the Statue of Liberty.
The Statue of Liberty, you can't get any closer than that unless you go exactly to the Statue of Liberty, so it's beautiful.
Like many of the regular commuters on board, Audrey Biazzi relaxes into her routine.
I like to sit by the beam so that I could sleep. I could lean against it and nod for 20 minutes.
Police officer John Downey lives and works on Staten Island. It's unusual for him to be crossing the harbor during the week.
I was testifying on a search warrant in Manhattan criminal court, and I decided to take the ferry back to Staten Island because I wanted to get back, to my command and head home that day.
The Barbary is now roughly halfway through its voyage. The senior mate comes up to the pilot house. It's his job to supervise the deckhands while they help the passengers get on and off. Now that the ferry's underway, he can breathe a little easier.
How'd it go? No problem.
15 minutes in.
Approaching the KV buoy, Jersey side. Yeah, got it.
The KV buoy marks the entry into the Kill Van Kull Channel and the approach to the Staten Island Ferry Terminal.
That's when the vessel should be slowing down and they're going to make the approach into the slip and time to go home.
A few minutes from now, when they approach the terminal, the ferry will have to pull into one of the narrow slips. On a windy day like today, that will take some especially deft maneuvering. The gap is barely wider than the ship.
It can be very, very tricky, depending on where the wind's from, where's the wave action from, what the current's doing, and also other traffic that may be interfering with you.
Okay, I'm heading down to my mooring station. Great. See you later.
The deckhand needs to be ready to let the passengers off when the ferry docks.
Docking and undocking is going to be the busiest time. They're going to have to make sure that the passengers are keeping safe and not getting in harm's way. People are now either waking up from their sleep or putting their cell phones away or getting ready to disembark the vessel.
Get out of here.
It's like a sixth sense, okay, it's time for you to go toward the front, so you're not in that madness trying to get off.
The ferry should be approaching the slip by now, but it's not.
And we started to walk to the front of the boat. But the odd thing was, this guy was running by toward the back of the boat, passing us. I thought that was odd.
When it shifts and slows up, you know you're coming in, and it never slowed up.
I couldn't figure out why it wasn't slowing down. And then as we were getting closer, it seemed like it was picking up more speed.
The ferry shows no sign of stopping.
Everybody back! Everybody back!
And I flew. We all flew.
It sounded like a bomb exploded on the boat.
The sound of the metal, the clanging, steel screams. It's such a high-pitched kind of sound. And then it went completely quiet.
The vessel has ground to a stop alongside a concrete maintenance pier, with its side torn wide open. Dozens on board are injured. The emergency has just begun. The inside of the stricken Staten Island Ferry looks like a war zone.
Next thing you know, you hear people yelling and screaming. You know, it's complete chaos.
There are hundreds of panicked people aboard the Barbary. Few have any idea what just happened.
All right, that way. Get to the other side. Move this way.
Police officer John Downey was with the NYPD when the World Trade Center was attacked. And that traumatic event was barely 2 years earlier.
And your mind races. All right, you know, this is happening again. My first thought was that maybe someone tried to, blow up the boat. At that point, you have to pretty much figure out, am I looking for someone who might have set a bomb off? There's people running all over the place. And as they're running away from the disaster, you're running into it.
On shore, off-duty firefighter Peter Blake also tries to figure out what just happened.
When I turned and saw the boat on the construction pier there, I figured they detonated something on the boat.
The maintenance pier the ferry has hit is hundreds of meters south of the slips where it was supposed to dock. Blake jumps into action.
As a fireman, you want to get there and you want to help.
Gansas,
I'm gonna go see what's happening.
And the chief engineer both rush to find out what's going on.
Help, please! Help me!
Audrey Biasi is pinned down by debris on one of the passenger decks. She's badly hurt.
I'm ball crushed, and I can't move. I didn't know that we had crashed. I thought that they blew up the front of the boat.
Somebody, can you hear me?
I thought, now I'm gonna drown, and this is how I'm going.
Henry Benedritti finds himself behind a collapsed stairway. There's no sign of his friend, Frank Sullivan.
I got hit in my leg with something that just came out of nowhere. I was able to wiggle my way out of where I was trapped. But I never saw Frankie. I thought Frankie was fine because he ran before me. I thought, he's gonna be fine.
This is Task Force Portable. I got a ferry crash in the pier with multiple injuries.
Officer Downey's instincts and training take over.
We're gonna need multiple ambulances at the terminal.
It was tag, you're it. You're the first line of defense from now until everybody gets to the dock.
What's going on? You, check damage on the main deck. Are you okay? Richie, are you okay?
Oh my God.
The injured passengers need help. For many, time is running out.
I need your help.
With the ferry's wrecked side against the maintenance pier, no one can get on or off the ship. Somehow, Captain Gansas has to get the ferry over to the slips so first responders can board.
We need to switch over the controls. You stay here. I'm heading over to the Manhattan side.
The captain's plan is to get his ship clear of the maintenance pier, turn it, and then dock it by its undamaged end. Off-duty firefighter Peter Blake is determined to get from the pier to the ferry, but it's too far to jump.
I was able to get a construction ladder that was left there, and I was able to bridge from the concrete pier to the boat. New York City Fire Department, we really look at ourselves as the last line of defense to try to save a life. I got some cuts going onto the boat.
Blake has crossed over into another world.
And the first person that I saw was deceased. I mean, some of the injuries, people lost their legs and their limbs. I mean, it was horrific injuries.
Captain Gansas is back in the Manhattan pilot house, but he can't start piloting yet.
Yes. Okay, I'm in position.
Transfer command now.
First, he and the engineer have to switch control over to that end of the ship.
You have the command.
Off-duty firefighter Peter Blake works his way through the passenger decks.
Hey, sir, all right, can you hear me?
Many of the victims can no longer be helped.
I was kind of like just trying to triage at that point to see like who's actually pinned and savable and who's obviously deceased.
I'm in here.
Blake finds Audrey Biasi still pinned under debris.
We got somebody under here. What's your name?
The next thing I hear is somebody saying, there's a woman under there, let's get her out.
We're just gonna move this off you, all right?
It was kind of by luck that I came across her. She was stuck under like a piece of the steel decking.
So listen, we're gonna need some leverage.
Okay, this is gonna work.
That'd be good, yeah.
But we were able to use actual parts of the decking itself as a leverage to actually pull it off of her to get her out of it.
Captain Gansas has got his ferry away from the pier and out into the harbor. Now he can attempt to turn it around.
They had to maneuver that vessel, not knowing if the propulsion on that end of the vessel had been damaged.
There are many injured people on board. Every minute could cost lives.
At that point, it just seems like time really stood still as far as trying to get back to the terminal.
A sea of rescuers has congregated, but they're powerless to do anything.
I mean, you can see where help is, but you need to get there. So you got to get this boat into the pier.
Nice and easy. Stand by the dock.
With the ferry safely in the slip, first responders can finally board. They race onto the ship to search for survivors. Investigators need to board too. What they find is worse than anything they could have expected. "20 minutes after hell has been unleashed on the Andrew J. Barbary, the ferry now sits securely docked by its undamaged end at the terminal on Staten Island. 2/3 of the walls and windows on one side of the main passenger deck have been obliterated. Behind them, fully halfway into the ship, everything has been demolished. More than 80 people are injured, 11 of them fatally.
Everybody around me was bleeding. I was the best of the critical because I didn't lose a limb. The angels put their wings out. That's how I felt, because there was so much debris and I didn't get crushed. I was so grateful.
The Coast Guard has already arrived at the scene, led by investigator Charles Cobb.
I remember the day very, very clearly. It's one of those things that you never forget.
With Cobb is assistant investigator Richard Gonzalez.
When we got to the vessel, and that's when we realized this is really, really bad.
The main passenger deck looks like it's been detonated.
The extent of the damage and the magnitude of death and injury, that did go through our mind as we got on there. Was it a terrorist attack?
The investigators quickly determined this was no act of terrorism, but they realized the general public could fear otherwise.
This is about 2 years after 9/11, so everybody was assuming some kind of a mass attack. It turned out equally as devastating.
Off-duty firefighter Peter Blake finally leaves the ship.
I stayed and operated for probably up to maybe 2 hours. I was then told, hey man, you need to get your shoulder looked at.
He didn't run into my buddy Frankie. He was ahead of me.
Electrician Henry Benedritti is taken to a hospital and goes home that same night.
People died that day. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, they started to talk about the names of the people. And the last name they said was Frank Sullivan. Frankie had 2 kids. A wife. He didn't make it.
The horrific event has shaken the entire city.
It's a terrible tragedy. People who were on their way home, all of a sudden taken from us.
The National Transportation Safety Board puts investigator Bob Ford on the case.
So 9/11, obviously September 11, 2001, and this is October 15th, 2003. Not much time had passed. A big accident in New York, that's going to be the first thing. Oh my God, we're getting attacked again.
They need to find the truth and get word out to the public as quickly as they can.
All right, what do you got for me so far?
Let me show you.
The NTSB and the Coast Guard will work closely together. The Staten Island ferries aren't equipped with voyage data recorders, so there's no audio record of what was said in the pilot house. And no onshore security cameras captured the moment of impact.
That's a lot of damage.
So the key evidence investigators have is the mangled ferry itself.
The impact tore a gash about 200 feet long.
The severity of this accident, we couldn't figure out how it happened. It looked like the knife had been taken to the vessel from one side to the other.
50 feet deep into that thing, everything was just completely wiped out from the outside of the vessel till the midline of the vessel.
To try and understand the extreme damage inflicted on the ferry, investigators focus on the maintenance pier it collided with.
This was a concrete pier that was elevated, sticking out into the water.
Where the vessel hit the dock happened to line up with the row of windows.
We're talking about concrete against metal.
Riding into the corner of the pier, the Andrew Barberi didn't stand a chance.
The pier just sliced it, and it basically cut it open like a tuna can down the side. The only reason it didn't sink was because of where the damage was, way above the waterline.
Had this been below the waterline, people might have drowned.
The crash could have resulted in hundreds of fatalities. Investigators want to interview all 15 crew members, especially the captain and assistant captain assigned to be in the pilot house during docking.
Does he understand how serious this matter is?
Right away,
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
they're hitting roadblocks.
The captain won't be with us.
The captain, he's taken the Fifth Amendment. He's not talking.
The United States Fifth Amendment allows any person under investigation to keep silent if they fear what they say could be used against them in court.
He lawyered up and that was it.
Investigators know it was Assistant Captain Smith who was actually on the controls when the ferry crashed.
We definitely wanted to talk to the assistant captain.
But in a stunning turn of events that shocks everyone, it's impossible to interview him.
Police say one of the ferry captains, Richard Smith, fled the scene and ran home, where he shot himself with a pellet gun and slashed his wrists. He came out of his house on a stretcher in front of neighbors and is now in the hospital.
After life-saving surgery, Smith is still in no condition to talk to investigators.
I just couldn't believe it. It was the first time I've ever heard anything like that in any investigation. At this point now I'm thinking, why would he try to commit suicide? Whether he did this purposefully, or he made an error and he feels so guilty that he made an error. So we don't know. We just have to keep going on the investigation.
It's hard for investigators to understand how a qualified officer could mistakenly drive full speed into a pier in broad daylight.
Everybody back!
Why would the ferry not even slow down before the crash? If there's a mechanical issue with the Staten Island fleet that could have led to this disaster, Investigators need to find it.
You always think of the mechanical problems that could happen. You could have a steering casualty, you could have an engine casualty. You don't make assumptions.
The Andrew J. Barberi is 22 years old, a workhorse that's made tens of thousands of crossings. A failure is possible.
Can you hear me? Loud and clear.
Knowing that the Barberi's powerful propulsion system could be malfunctioning, investigators tie the vessel securely to a dock, then put it through a battery of tests.
Okay, go ahead.
That was the main thing we thought this might have been, that this was a mechanical issue, that the propulsion system got stuck and pushed the vessel forward without being able to stop.
Going to full power.
Everything seems to be functioning perfectly.
Okay, shut him down. Copy that, shutting down.
The mechanics of the vessel, the propulsion was working.
At the end of the day, it was determined that all systems were operating properly. I mean, that was ruled out probably on day 3. And so, what happened?
Investigators need a new lead, but the assistant captain is still in the hospital, unavailable to talk.
Okay, thanks.
And the captain isn't talking either, on his lawyer's advice.
I never talked to the captain. He kept giving the same answer. Based on advice from counsel, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Next in the hierarchy is the senior mate. He was in the back of the pilot house when the ferry crashed.
Gentlemen, thank you for your patience.
If he'll talk, investigators hope he can shed light onto why a routine trip for 1,500 commuters came to such a horrific end.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, walk us through. Where were you and what did you see?
The senior mate of the Andrew J. Barberi was right there when the ferry rammed a maintenance pier, killing 11 people and injuring dozens more.
I guess I got to the pilot house about halfway through the trip.
The senior mate is usually patrolling the passenger decks while the ship is underway. But after the start of this trip,
How'd it go? No problem.
he was on a bench at the back of the pilot house.
It was a regular day and nothing out of the ordinary.
He wasn't on lookout duty, but because he was upstairs, he's able to tell investigators something about what happened.
Okay, I'm heading down to my mooring station. Great. See you later.
Toward the end of the voyage, the deckhand returned to the lower decks as required, but no one came up to take over as lookout.
It was contrary to the Coast Guard regulations of having 2 people in the wheelhouse from time of departure till time of arrival. But procedures were not tightly regulated by the Staten Island Ferry operations.
So who was in the pilot house?
Just the 2 of us.
You and the assistant captain.
Yes, sir.
The protocol is the captain and the assistant captain should be on the controls as they make the approach to the dock.
But Gansas wasn't in the Staten Island pilot house. He should have been with Assistant Captain Smith during the docking, but he wasn't.
It became clear that there was a disconnect between policies and procedures and actual operations of the vessel.
Investigators learned some captains would stay at the other end of the ferry and wait there to take the helm for the return trip.
It operated that way for years, and they'd had no major problems, so clearly it was working for them in their mind.
They basically just said, hey, you take this side, I'll take that side. What can go wrong?
The assistant captain was left alone at the helm, piloting a ship with 1,500 passengers on board. And from where the senior mate was sitting, he couldn't see well enough to help.
I don't really know what happened. It just... nothing out of the ordinary, and then... bang.
What's going on? You check damage on the main deck.
The senior mate was quickly sent to help deal with the emergency, so he doesn't know what happened in the pilot house after that.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Investigators have gotten a glimpse into the flawed day-to-day operations on the Staten Island ferries.
Thank you again.
But they still don't understand why an assistant captain with years of experience would sail right past the slip and ram the ferry into a pier.
We're stuck with paperwork, I'm afraid.
Human factors specialist Barry Strouch is brought in on the case. His particular experience makes him uniquely qualified.
I had personally worked on 2 accidents on large transport systems that were later determined to be mass homicides. It's a natural question. The assistant captain did not alter the course of the vessel, did not slow the speed. Was he suicidal in any way?
Strouch looks into the 55-year-old assistant captain's records. He discovers Smith has an impeccable reputation. His annual performance reviews are all rated superior or outstanding.
It's impressive.
Every person we talked to, his records showed a diligent, motivated employee who liked his job and liked his life.
How was life on the oil rigs? A lot worse than this. The winds were just vicious.
When investigators interview Smith's colleagues and family, they find no suggestion Smith was suicidal before the crash. Strouch concludes Smith's suicide attempt was likely caused by distress after the accident.
This assistant captain was so distraught by what he felt was his responsibility for the accident that he attempted suicide as a way of reacting to his feeling of remorse.
But if he didn't ram the pier deliberately, what did happen? Investigators need to know more about Smith's actions before he fled the ship. There's someone else who saw him after the crash.
The engineer talked to him right after.
Stay here. I'm gonna go see what's happening.
Okay.
The chief engineer was one of the last people to talk to Smith before he disappeared that day.
So go ahead.
It was right after we hit.
He shares a critical detail.
He said he blacked out or passed out.
The assistant captain said that.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
What happened? I think I passed out.
Well, he said I blacked out or I passed out.
Did he fall asleep? Was it a medical condition? Did he have a stroke?
Investigators have urgent questions that need answers.
We started saying, why would he black out?
Investigators are faced with a startling revelation. The assistant captain of the Andrew Barbary may have blacked out moments before the fatal crash.
We needed to find out why he had the event, what caused it, and that just got the chain going.
They want to talk to him more than ever, but they can't.
After his hospital stay, his lawyer recommended that he not speak to us, and we were never able to actually interview the assistant captain.
With no lead from Smith himself, investigators must consider every possible scenario for why he would have blacked out.
Alcohol tests?
Drug and alcohol, the pressure is always on, so you don't rule it out until you can start getting your facts in place.
Investigators have the results of a blood test done on the assistant captain when he was taken to the hospital.
Negative. Test came back clean.
Investigators turn to the ferry crew's work schedule. Shifts are typically 8 hours long, but intensive.
The Staten Island Ferry, for each shift, they pretty much ran on a 30-minute schedule, and they would run nonstop until the shift ended.
Could Assistant Captain Smith have been so tired that he lost consciousness at the worst possible moment?
In order for that to happen, the person has to be basically exhausted.
In other words, it's someone who is that tired that he or she can't control himself or herself to stay awake.
How was life on the oil rigs? A lot worse than this.
The deckhand serving as lookout said Smith seemed normal just minutes before the crash.
Okay, I'm heading down to my mooring station. Great. See you later.
Interviews with family back that up.
His wife says sleep schedule is normal.
We've ruled out fatigue from what we learned about his sleep-wake patterns and his work schedule.
Okay. How are we doing on his medical records?
Because of the fact that he had what he described as passed out on the vessel, we needed to get as many medical records as we can.
I've got his Coast Guard forms right here.
There's always the possibility that a heart attack or stroke or something else causes the incapacitation.
Investigators scrutinized Smith's medical records, starting with his 719K. This boilerplate form is a safeguard created by the Coast Guard itself to ensure seafarers are healthy and physically fit for duty.
The 719K specifies all medical conditions that the individual has or medication that they're taking, and it's signed by the physician certifying that the person is qualified to hold a license.
According to Smith's 719K, he's in excellent health. None of the records Strouch has seen explain why the assistant captain might have blacked out at the controls.
There's got to be more.
Strouch is determined to keep digging.
More than likely, there was other information out there that would be able to help us answer that question as to what happened on the ferry. We had to rule everything out.
He thinks of a way to look beyond the 719K and maybe get closer to the truth.
I took a guess that the pharmacies would tell us something, and I was prepared to go to every local pharmacy near where the assistant captain lived and just ask them if they had information about medications that they dispensed to the assistant captain.
Investigators visit a pharmacy near Smith's home and hit the jackpot.
There's another one. This one's a painkiller.
Smith was on a cocktail of prescriptions for a variety of conditions.
The assistant captain had been on prescription medication for several years, which he had not reported to the Coast Guard.
For Strouch, it's a shocking revelation.
That's quite the list.
To navigate a ferry with a capacity of several thousand people through one of the busiest harbors in the world required alertness at all times, quick reaction time, the ability to sustain attention, and the ability to distinguish between what's relevant in the environment and what is irrelevant, to focus. The assistant captain had been taking prescription pain medications for chronic back pain. And he'd been taking that for at least several months, and he continued to maintain his work schedule.
One of the pain medications Smith has been taking is tramadol, a drug with a concerning list of side effects.
Dizziness, drowsiness.
And there it is.
Blurred vision, fainting, seizures.
One of the potential side effects of tramadol is seizure. So it's very possible that the tramadol led to his incapacitation.
The whole point of the Coast Guard's 719K is to flag mariners at medical risk to protect the lives of passengers and crew. That didn't happen this time. Investigators need to find out why. The assistant captain who crashed the Andrew J. Barbary had a signed 719K form stating that he was healthy and fit to pilot a ship, and that he wasn't taking any medications. But investigators now know that wasn't true.
He was taking prescription medications that could cause all kinds of adverse effects, and nobody knew about it.
When investigators follow the paper trail, they make a surprising discovery.
The doctor that prescribed that medication was also the doctor that signed his Coast Guard 719K form in which he attested that the assistant captain was not taking medication. I had never seen a case where a physician and a mariner together falsified a form.
I cannot for the life of me understand why a doctor would sign off, oh yeah, okay, I'll sign it off for the Coast Guard. That just absolutely bewildered me.
It's unbelievable.
That falsified medical form allowed Smith to renew his mariner's license without anyone taking a second glance. And it set the stage for a disaster. On the day of the crash, nobody knew Smith was at risk for any side effects. And the crew of the Andrew Barbary went about their business as usual.
I'm heading to the other side. It was all yours.
Got it. See you shortly.
Captain Gansas was never in the Staten Island pilot house after the Barbary got underway. Worse, he didn't join Smith for the docking the way he was supposed to.
See you later.
As the ship neared the end of its journey, the deckhand also left to carry out his other duties. No one came to replace him, leaving Assistant Captain Smith alone at the helm from that point on. In the final minutes before the ship was supposed to dock, Smith likely blacked out, perhaps overcome by the effects of his prescription medications.
Had Captain Gansas been on the pilot house, or if they had a active lookout, he would have been able to see that Captain Smith had passed out on the controls and taken action.
Incapacitated, Smith sailed the ferry right past the terminal at cruising speed. No one suspected anything.
What are we gonna do?
Until it was too late.
What the?
Serious flaws in the system allowed this horrific disaster to happen. The work investigators did in uncovering them have resulted in much needed change.
There was a major shakedown in the ferry operations in Staten Island that hopefully will prevent this from happening again.
They made enormous improvements in the safety of the operations. They make sure always that there are 2 licensed mariners in the pilot house during all phases of the operation.
As a result of the NTSB's report, the Coast Guard toughens its regulations to help ensure crews are fit for work.
New rules were implemented regarding overall health, everything from sleep apnea to being obese. Now, merchant mariners are required to maintain a certain level of physical fitness and readiness.
The report also recommends that the Coast Guard overhaul the way they analyze and track mariners' health to make it harder for people to get around the regulations.
The NTSB, a lot of times they do issue pretty harsh recommendations, but it is an eye-opener sometimes.
At the end of the day, what the Coast Guard wants is safety at sea.
In the courts, Assistant Captain Smith pleads guilty to 11 counts of seaman's manslaughter and to lying on his Coast Guard medical report. He receives an 18-month prison sentence. Smith's physician is put on probation for 1 year. Captain Gansas loses his job, ending his career as a mariner. The Department of Transportation is also faulted for poor oversight of their ferries, and the Director of Ferry Operations is sentenced to prison for 1 year plus a day for seaman's manslaughter. October 15, 2003, was a day that took the lives of 11 people and forever changed the lives of many others, including Audrey Biasi.
It was like changing a channel. I was living one life, and then somebody changed the channel, and that life was over with. But I was grateful I was alive.
Henry Benedritti lives with the loss of his friend, Frank Sullivan.
I hope Frankie's resting in peace. And I hope that his children and his wife have been able to move forward even in the eyes of this tragedy, you know, he was one of the good guys. He really was.
John Downey is inducted into the NYPD's Honor Legion for his actions that day.
When you're a cop, you're kind of on duty 24/7. I didn't do anything different than any other New York City cop would have did that day.
Firefighter Peter Blaich is now retired, but he hasn't left the Andrew J. Barberi behind.
In a crazy way, it unites us all. It's sad, right? Because it takes something like a 9/11 or a ferry crash to bring us all together and forget about all the day in and day out nonsense and say, okay, we're all human and we all care about each other and we're all trying to just save each other.
A car ferry heads back across the English Channel.
We'd had a good day out and we were looking forward to having a new adventure on the ship on the way home.
Just outside the harbor, disaster strikes.
Water absolutely plowed in. Just hit me like a bulldozer.
Everyday heroes scramble to the scene.
People inside the ship screaming and shouting, crying. It's absolute chaos and confusion.
Worst part of it, happening to see the children floating in the water.
The investigation reveals a deadly miscalculation.
We did have to scratch our heads at how on earth this vessel sank. She should have been able to make it across the channel.
Speed was all important and safety was not.
It was all madness, really.
March 6th, 1987. Zeebrugge Harbor, Belgium. Tankers, container ships, and ferries all converge at this busy European port, a vital hub for shipping and transportation.
Roger that. We've begun loading, Captain.
Excellent. Thank you.
As daylight begins to fade, the crew of the 132-meter ferry, the Herald of Free Enterprise, starts loading their massive ship.
She was a very modern and very efficient roll-on, roll-off ferry. She was designed both for speed and for volume.
So-called ro-ro ferries, like the Herald, let cars and trucks drive straight through the ship. Ramps at the front and back help loading and unloading happen as quickly as possible. The speed saves time, and time is money in the ferry business.
The time pressures can be quite exacting. In order to achieve optimum efficiency, you've got to get cargo on board as quickly as possible.
It's an unrelenting pace for crew members like Assistant Bosun Mark Stanley. Their workday started hours earlier in Dover, England.
A crew will have an assistant bosun responsible for directing the traffic into the proper places. You can get trailers, you can get lorries, you can get coaches, and then you can get cars and caravans.
Keep it moving, keep it moving.
The challenge is getting all that on board in a short time.
The 8,000-ton ferry has 2 decks for loading vehicles. Also on board are duty-free shops, restaurants, cafeterias, and a lounge that shows movies.
Keep it moving.
The 160-kilometer trip across the English Channel should take about 4 hours. It's the last scheduled run of the day.
This is a big ship. Let me just see if we've got...
16-year-old Gillian Baddeley and her family are returning home from a day trip to Belgium.
There was a deal on in the Sun newspaper, and it was £1 to go to these different places on via ferry. And wherever the trip was, that was where we would be taken. We'd had a good day out and we were looking forward to having a new adventure on the ship on the way home.
Mark, you keep an eye on your brother.
We got onto the ferry, all of the kids kind of departed. They all went their separate ways. So there were cinemas and restaurants and other things to keep us all entertained.
Hold up, dear. All right, come on. No, not too many sweets, love. Thanks, Mum. Okay, love. See you in a minute. Yeah.
"18-year-old Martin Barnes works in one of the ship's cafeterias.
It was a great social circle of crew. We socialised together. We had played football together. Many of us were sort of good friends, you know, socialising and drinking outside of work.
Oh, see you tomorrow, yeah?
It was a Friday. One of our friends was having an engagement party, and on the Saturday, so we was all looking forward to getting off on that Saturday.
Trucker Larry O'Brien is heading back home to Ireland with a load of medical supplies. For transport drivers, using the cross-channel ferry is a routine part of the job.
I'm sorry, mate, you're too late. Oh, no, please.
I pulled in and the security man said, "You're too late."
Please, my papers are done. Let me see your papers, please.
But I was in transit. My load was signed from Germany direct to Ireland. So I had no customs to do, it was direct.
Yeah, I've got a big lorry here.
So he said, "Okay, go ahead, you're lucky."
All right. Yes, you're a lucky day, mate. Oh, thank you. All right.
So I drove straight down. Your man just beckoned me straight in on the boat, and I was the last to load.
O'Brien's glad he got on board. He has a young daughter and a pregnant wife waiting for him at home.
Crew to harbour stations. Crew to harbour stations. On my way.
With the last passengers and vehicles loaded, the Herald is ready to leave port.
Okay. Take her out. Take her out.
Tonight, the hustle of the crew pays off. The Herald of Free Enterprise departs just a few minutes behind schedule.
I went off to the restaurant to get something to eat. I was looking around at so many people, families and kids. And I couldn't figure out why so many people on a boat. You know, normally at that time of the year, it'd be only just truck drivers and no one else on it.
A lot of the families used to make it a day out on the ferry, and we had the return leg from Zeebrugge on that night, so it was particularly busy.
I decided to go outside and have a look at the view as we were leaving port, which was quite amazing. I was the only one on the outside of the ship.
Less than 25 minutes into the voyage, with the harbor still in sight, the Herald of Free Enterprise suddenly lurches to the left.
It looked like the boat was going under the water. And I thought, oh, it must be like a mirage. I was imagining it, but it was actually happening.
Below decks, where the vehicles are parked, more proof that something is horribly wrong.
There's water coming down the stairs! What on earth is going on here?
The Herald rights itself.
She came back out of that and kind of straightened.
But within seconds, the crew realizes the crisis is far from over. Once again, the Herald lists dangerously to one side.
But she didn't come back from this one. She went straight over. Happened so quickly. Couldn't believe it happened so quickly.
Plates and people started falling. Anything that wasn't strapped down or tied down was going through the air, including people. Didn't realise exactly what was happening. I fell against the window of the side of the ship.
The Herald has rolled over in just 90 seconds. 539 people are trapped on board. And the ice-cold seawater is about to make the terrifying situation much worse. The Herald of Free Enterprise has capsized in the frigid waters just outside of Belgium's Zeebrugge harbor, with 539 people on board. Throughout the ship, passengers and crew are struggling to survive, and the situation is about to get even worse.
There was a massive window, and when it burst, the water absolutely plowed in. Porthole windows, exit doors, entry doors, up through decks, came in everywhere.
The water come up from the car deck, up the lift shaft, and rushed, and then just hit me like a bulldozer. Here where I was, it completely underwater. The lights sort of started appearing as if I'd gone. I can remember thinking almost that was it, game over.
I was still holding the table, and I said to myself, what am I doing here? There was only one way out, and that was up. Now, to go up, if you can imagine a ship that's completely gone outside, to get up was going to be a problem.
It felt like a nightmare. I just didn't know what was happening until I popped up out of the water. Then I suddenly thought, this is it, this is real.
Gillian Badley was up on deck when she was knocked out.
And when I woke on that, I realised the boat had capsized and I needed to get back into the ship to actually find my parents. And that's what I thought I had to do. I had to go back and find my parents. I realised I couldn't physically do it because the water was rising on the inside and it was getting higher and higher. And that's when I knew that I had to jump into the sea, otherwise I might have drowned on the actual ship. And I knew I had to fight for my life. Mum taught me how to swim as a young child. Otherwise, I would not have been able to save my own life that night. It was freezing cold and the sea was really rough. Just didn't know what to do, and I thought I could actually swim back to shore. And then I realised, of course, I wouldn't be able to because it was too rough.
Inside the ship, O'Brien and hundreds of other passengers are looking for a way out as the ice-cold waters continue to rise.
The worst part for me, to hear the people screaming and shouting.
As the crisis worsens on board the Herald, port controllers in Zeebrugge harbor receive an urgent radio call from a nearby ship.
A car ferry has just rolled over at the entrance to the harbor.
The port controller issues a mayday. Malcolm Shakespeare is chief officer on board the Duke of Anglia.
What's this about the ferry?
His crew hears the call as they near the harbor, and they immediately begin looking for the vessel.
There was a mayday. Will all vessels proceed in the area to look for the bloody ferry?
On the Herald, passengers can't wait for help to arrive.
There's only one thing came into my mind, was about me surviving and me trying to leave. I found a hose reel, a fire hose reel, and I threw it up to get it around the chair. And I missed, of course, and I tried it again. I got around it, so I said, no, could I pull myself up?
In another part of the ship, Martin Barnes is still alive, but he has no way out as the frigid North Sea continues to pour in.
The backs of the seats, they're all fixed to the deck. So the backs of the seats then became a ladder system. So I can remember like pulling myself up the backs of these seats, falling back off again because I was wet, I was cold, I was heavier with the water all soaking on my clothes.
Using the fire hose, Larry O'Brien has managed to pull himself clear of the water. He scales the chairs, but now there's another challenge.
I climbed up, and the window was in front of me.
There's no way to open the window. O'Brien is trapped.
I took off my boot. I kept beating with the boot and eventually broke out of it. I put my hand in my pocket and I took out 20 wet cigarettes. So we weren't going to have a smoke. I said, I have to get someone's attention. So I took out my cigarette lighter out of my pocket and I started flicking it like this, lighting to see, could the ship that was 2 or 3 miles away see me doing this to get their attention. That was only a moment of panic. That didn't happen.
With more people still trapped inside the ferry, O'Brien gets to work.
So I got this big rope and I threw it back down. People started coming up.
Go on, put them in leg, all right?
On the Duke of Anglia, Malcolm Shakespeare and the crew swing into action.
All right.
But the waters are too shallow for the ship to get close enough to the capsized ferry.
You can't steam around here because of the banks.
Come on, boys, let's move it.
We launched the lifeboat and off we went in the dark. I mean, when I think about it, it was all madness, really.
Gillian Baddeley is struggling to stay above the water in the cold North Sea. She thought getting away from the Herald was the right decision. Now, she's not so sure.
I looked back at the ship and I could see how it was capsized onto one side, and it was really almost surreal. It was such a rough night that night. The sea was battling against me. It was so cold. I lost the feeling in my legs with hypothermia coming in.
Inside the Herald, hundreds of passengers are still trapped. Time is running out as the freezing water starts to take its toll. Suddenly, the darkness is pierced by the flashlights of the rescuers.
We saw all the lights at the top of the starboard side.
The only way that we could get people out was by smashing the windows with fire axes.
That was when we heard all the big, heavy smashing. All you heard was this glass breaking, and watch out below.
There's people inside the ship still screaming and shouting. I mean, you know, it's absolute chaos and confusion.
We saw the ropes coming down in a loop type thing. They were shouting, put it under your arms.
Come on!
Grip onto the rope, like so, and then we'll lift. And I can remember looking up, and they were just saying, obviously, hold on, we're pulling.
Helicopters hover over the capsized ferry as more rescue boats arrive on the scene.
I saw a lifeboat. Well, it was just a local fisherman. I waved my arms at him like this, and they pointed over at me and then came over. And pulled me up on the boat. The feeling, knowing that I'd survived and I was going to live, was just so overwhelming, the relief.
By sea and air, rescue efforts continue for hours.
There was bodies floating in front of me. There was so much destruction, death that night.
By early morning, it's clear there are no more survivors.
By the end of the night, we'd rescued 300 and something odd passengers. We managed to recover 58 bodies, and then we couldn't find anybody else.
Gillian Baddeley is lucky to be alive, but she doesn't know what happened to the rest of her family.
A couple more survivors came in, and then there was my brother Mark.
Mark! Mark!
Gillian!
Mark!
We had a lovely reunion. We hugged and cried.
Gillian's other stepbrother, Colin, also survives.
Oh, excuse me. I'm Gillian Badley.
Mark Badley and our brother Colin. We're looking for our parents.
Oh, and Uncle David.
The lady from the Red Cross came over with like a clipboard in her hand and saw our names on the list, and she looked up at us and said, "You do know that your parents are dead, don't you?" And that was how the news got broke to us.
As the number of dead climbs to 193, the questions begin. How had such a massive vessel capsized so quickly? And who is to blame? The accident that killed 193 on the Herald of Free Enterprise is Britain's worst maritime disaster in decades. From the beginning, the nation is riveted.
There are conflicting reports of what happened. One account says it hit the harbour wall, another that it ran onto a sandbank.
The government orders a formal investigation. David Steele is a lawyer and senior member of the team.
It was such an astonishingly awful disaster which caught the attention of the British people.
How could it have happened? We examine the theories that will now be investigated. Prime Minister has flown to the scene and...
Gentlemen, please take a seat.
To assist with the inquiry, a team of experts is assembled. Naval architect Tom Allen worked on the construction of the ship.
At the time the Herald of Free Enterprise was built, she was one of three sisters. They were going to be the biggest and the fastest ships going across from Dover to Calais.
How had this state-of-the-art ship come to such a tragic end? The Herald remains beached just outside the harbor, a painful reminder of the terrifying night it sank.
It was quite remarkable to see this pretty big ship lying on its beam ends with half the hull above the water.
The position of the Herald allows investigators to check for obvious damage to the ship's starboard hull.
Your first thought would be that it was a collision. And it is a very busy route.
If the Herald had collided with another vessel, it might explain the sudden dramatic tilt passengers and crew experienced. A hole under the waterline would also explain the speed with which the boat capsized. But from their vantage point, investigators can't see anything like that. When they get to the front of the boat, however, they see something troubling. The huge 5-meter bow doors are wide open.
You could see all around the ship, and you could see that the doors were open. So that was the surprise.
As investigators interview eyewitnesses, they learn that the doors at the front of the ship weren't closed when the Herald sailed out of Zeebrugge.
The ship should not have sailed with those doors open. As a ship is moving forward, she builds up a wave at the forward end of the ship. As you're moving forward, that wave can increase in size. It's purely the pressure wave of the ship going through the water. It just pushes the water up and then it can push it back into the ship.
But ferries like the Herald are designed to keep water out, even if the doors are open. In harbor, there's normally 2.5 meters between the ship's deck and the waterline. It's called the freeboard, and it's kept ships safe in the past.
There was another example of a vessel that had actually sailed with the doors open.
In October 1983, the Herald's sister ship, the Pride of Free Enterprise, sailed from Dover to Calais without incident, even though its bow and stern doors were left open.
So she sailed across and nobody knew.
But it could have been disastrous. So the captain of that ship asked for changes to make sure it couldn't happen again. But with no damage to the vessel, the ferry company decided no changes were necessary. Investigators don't understand why the Pride crossed safely, but the Herald didn't.
We did have to scratch our heads at how on earth this vessel sank, even with the bow doors open. She should have been able to make it across the channel.
The Herald is raised, and when investigators probe the ship, they can't find anything else out of the ordinary. Somehow, the open bow doors must have been the cause of the accident. But how?
Everything set, Tony? Cars and lawyers are lined up here. Good.
To better understand the disaster, experts turn to the Herald's sister ship. They need to take it to the brink of disaster to determine why 193 people died. It's 2 months since the Herald of Free Enterprise capsized near Zeebrugge Harbor, killing 193.
Are we close yet? Almost ready, yeah.
To understand how, investigators replicate as closely as possible the last minutes of the doomed ship. They reenact the voyage using the Herald's sister ship, the Pride of Free Enterprise. The two ferries have the exact same design, and investigators load the Pride to its maximum tonnage. Using a series of cameras mounted on the ship, they monitor every stage of the experiment.
Cameras mounted. Okay, let's get started.
Tony Morrill coordinated the test.
On board, we had devices to measure the power of the ship and speed. We had people tracking the ship from the shore. We wanted to take over the ship, if you like, and have a departure at the same tide of conditions and the same time of day as the Herald left Zeebrugge.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay. The only crucial difference, this time the bow doors are closed. The investigators are most interested in the freeboard, the distance from the waterline to the car deck. How had the harbor waters leapt 3 meters onto the Herald? First, they turn their attention to the loading process at Zeebrugge.
How are the ballast tanks?
Number 14, 268 tons. Tank 3 is at 42 tons, sir.
Very good.
While the Herald is designed to be loaded on 2 levels at the same time, Zeebrugge Harbor only has a single loading ramp.
The procedure was to use the same ramp for loading the lower deck and the higher deck. And the only way to actually facilitate this was to ballast the bow down so that the ramp could touch onto the top deck and then loading could proceed.
Before the Herald left harbor, the crew began the 2-hour-long process of emptying the tanks. But it was still carrying tons of ballast at the time of the accident. For the test, investigators make sure the Pride of Free Enterprise has a similar amount on board.
Ballast 14 and 3 at 260 tons. What's the freeboard? That'll bring the bow down 0.5 meter.
Did the extra ballast cause the flooding of the car decks?
It reduced the freeboard, the distance between the water line at the bow and the vehicle deck itself. So at the start, when it left the Zeebrugge, that freeboard was already reduced.
With the freeboard now reduced by more than 0.5 meter, investigators keep a close watch as the ship sails through the harbor.
The tension was looking at the bow wave using a whole host of cameras, including one looking vertically down at the bow wave.
But even with the ballast tanks filled and the ferry loaded, the cameras show that the water still isn't reaching the bow doors. Investigators believe the harbor itself may have played a role in the disaster. At just 16 meters deep, Zeebrugge Harbor is relatively shallow. The Pride's hull sinks almost 6 meters into it. As it leaves Zeebrugge, the narrow gap between the hull and the harbor floor pulls the ship even deeper.
Because of the restricted amount of water beneath the keel and the seabed, the water speeds up, and that has a consequence of allowing the ship to sink.
It's called the squat effect, and it drops the bow another half meter into the water. But even as the ship sails through the shallow harbor, investigators still can't get the water onto the bow deck.
It's still a reasonable, even though small freeboard.
Captain, can we take it to full speed, please?
Investigators get the crew to match the speed of the Herald as it left the harbor. When they do, they finally find the last piece of the puzzle.
Hey, look at this. Look at this.
The water that was lurking just below now reaches the bow doors.
The cameras showed very clearly that at a critical speed, water rose high enough to engulf that deck if the bow doors were open.
For the Herald, this was the beginning of the end. With tons of ballast in the bow tanks, a shallow harbor, and an increased speed, the freeboard shrank to a critical level.
The rate of flow of water coming in was 40 tons a second in the first 15 seconds.
Once the water came in, it had free access onto the car deck. So it would have made its way around all of the freight that was on board.
Then the vessel would capsize within 1 minute. Within 1 minute. I mean, so this was drastic stuff.
One reason the Herald went over so quickly was the design of the ship itself. Like most ro-ro ferries, its car decks weren't built with dividing bulkheads. If there's any flooding, it can spread rapidly. The extreme movement of water across a deck is called the free surface effect, and it can be deadly.
If you take a normal tray and you put water in it, now while you're holding it, the water is still. You move slightly, all the water moves to one end. Now, if you can imagine on a ship which is 50 meters wide, and you have a meter of water, then as you heel to one side, it's the weight of the waters moving. That is what's called free surface. It's actually a movement of weight from one side of the ship to the other as the ship heels.
That movement of weight was what caused the ship to tilt and right itself the first time.
But if the weight gets too great, the inherent stability in the ship will not hold it and she will heel over. You're talking about a couple of thousand tons of water, which is actually moving from one side of the ship to the other, and that has a big impact.
It takes just seconds for the Herald to capsize. The open bow doors led to the flooding of the Herald and to the death of 193 people. But who was responsible for closing the ship's bow doors? And why hadn't they? The capsize of the Herald of Free Enterprise took the lives of 193 people. Investigators understand the mechanics of the disaster, but the reason the ferry's bow doors were open is another startling discovery.
The focus of attention was, of course, on why they were open, as they obviously shouldn't have been.
The ship's captain comes under intense scrutiny. Why had he left harbor without securing those doors?
Now, you got to remember the bow doors on the Herald are different from most of the other ferries at the time. Most of the other ferries, the bow door came up and over. so that you couldn't actually see out of the bridge because you had the door sitting up above your head. With the Herald of Free Enterprise, there were cam doors so they came round the side, so it wasn't immediately obvious that the doors were open.
Investigators discover that there was no warning light to tell the captain the doors hadn't been closed. Isolated on the bridge, he had no way of knowing he was sailing into disaster. An inquiry is assembled to get answers. The central witness is the ship's captain, David Lurie. But he was badly injured in the disaster, and his memory is unclear.
How did you travel with the bow doors open?
I really don't remember. I'd assumed it was impossible.
Take her out. Take her out.
What Lurie can say is that no one told him there was a problem.
One of the things which we found during the investigation was that they operated a negative reporting system. Now, with a negative reporting system, the captain assumes that everything's okay unless somebody tells him that it's wrong. One of the things we had to instigate after was to have a positive reporting system so that the chief officer or the officer on the deck has to confirm to the bridge, right, the doors are closed and you can now sail.
The inquiry learns that the captain didn't ensure the bow doors were closed before departure. What about his chief officer?
Leslie Sable, Chief Officer, Herald of Free Enterprise.
It's Sable's job to oversee the loading and unloading of the ship.
Keep it moving, keep it moving.
When Sable tells his story, investigators make an unsettling discovery.
I failed to stay at the controls that operated the bow doors.
Crew to harbour stations. Crew to harbour stations.
On my way.
Just minutes before the Herald's scheduled departure time, Sable leaves the loading deck, even though the bow doors are still open. The inquiry hears that leaving early was the only way for Sable to satisfy another requirement of his standing orders.
Okay, take her out.
Take her out, please.
Taking her out.
Being on the bridge for departure.
The requirement that the chief officer be on the car deck to see the doors closed was obviously wholly inconsistent with his need to be on the bridge to assist in departure.
You've got a situation here. The officer is pulled between ensuring safety down on the car deck and actually safety up on the bridge.
The inquiry learns that if the chief officer waited to confirm the bow doors were closed, departure would be delayed by several minutes. In fact, in a memo issued 7 months before the accident, the company that operated the ferry urged that it leave 15 minutes early, and that pressure be put on the first officer to ensure prompt departure.
There's a lot of competition, so the pressure to get on with it is fully understandable. But what hadn't been thought through was that the more you put pressure on A to do something, when he's expected to be somewhere else at the same time, then you're asking for trouble.
This memo was so shocking in that any manager would put it in writing that speed was all important and safety was not.
The captain didn't notice anything irregular, and the chief officer was too busy to check. The inquiry hears from Assistant Boatswain Mark Stanley.
The boatswain has many tasks, no doubt, but his primary task on departure from a port was to close the doors.
Thank you for appearing here today. Did you close the bow doors?
No.
Mark Stanley admits that on March 6, 1987, he failed to do his job.
The person responsible for closing the doors conceded that he hadn't done so.
Time for tea?
Sure.
Mark Stanley admits he left his post for his break. His shift started hours earlier on the other side of the English Channel.
Humans will make mistakes. However well disciplined, however well trained, they get tired. and tired humans can make mistakes.
When Stanley returns to his cabin for tea, he falls asleep.
Crew to harbor stations. Crew to harbor station.
It's a nap he won't wake up from until the ship capsizes. Stanley's testimony shocks Britain. The inquiry finds the bow doors were left open because a single crew member was asleep, and the Herald had no adequate backups to catch his mistake.
There was no redundancy here. If one man failed, there was nobody there to step in.
A tired crew and a rush to save a few minutes cost the lives of nearly 200 people. It's a sobering wake-up call for ferry operators. Changes were required to prevent a disaster like this from ever happening again. After months of investigation, the report on the Herald of Free Enterprise disaster is finally released. Members of the crew and ferry management are blamed.
Mr. Justice Sheen said of the Townsend Company that from top to bottom, it was riddled with the disease of slovenliness. There'd been a lamentable lack of direction and a vacuum at the center.
Changes are made to the reporting system and the standing orders. But the report also calls for roll-on, roll-off ferries to be redesigned.
We were looking at improving the survivability so that there was less an opportunity for this to happen again.
There's one simple fix that would have prevented the tragedy.
They could have put an indicator on board which showed that the doors were closed.
This tribunal recommended that there be lights on the bridge for just that purpose.
The lack of indicator lights isn't the only design flaw that contributed to the capsizing of the Herald. In order to attract customers in a competitive industry, ro-ro ferries are built to allow cars to drive on and off the ships as quickly as possible. That convenience comes with a steep price.
What you've got to do is to look at the type of vessel itself, and they are extremely vulnerable. They're designed for optimum efficiency, but you're actually building in potential hazards, particularly the open car decks, which extend from forward to aft of the ship and from side to side.
The report suggests that bulkheads be built within car decks to reduce the free surface effect.
There was considerable pressure from some quarters of the maritime community to bring to an end the use of open-decked ferries.
But it's a design change that meets stiff resistance from the industry.
The whole concept of ro-ro ferries is speed of turnaround. You can go in from one end and you just drive straight off from the other end. So an open deck is almost essential.
As the industry struggles to balance the competing demands of speed and safety, the shadow of the tragedy still lingers for many of the survivors of the disaster.
I spent about 4 months driving just to prove to myself that I could do it. My family weren't very impressed with me, but we got over that issue. And I said, I had to do this. I had to do it.
There was no way back for me going back to sea. I tried to in the following year. The anxiety got hold of me and I thought, no more, I can't do this anymore. So, yeah, called it a day. It'll be with me till the day I go. Once you've seen trauma, you don't forget it.
We were told we were going to have to identify the bodies, and we were taken to a gymnasium, and then I saw my mum lying there, and they said I couldn't touch her, but I did anyway. I put my hand on her shoulder to say goodbye and that I love you.
I suppose the worst part of it for me after happening to see the children floating in the water, you know, and that put me thinking of my little girl at home, you know, and how lucky I was that she was at home.
Larry O'Brien helped save as many as 40 people that night. If not for him and the dozens of passengers and crew members that suddenly became rescuers, the disaster could have been far more deadly.
There's great criticism about the crew of the Herald of Free Enterprise. No. The crew of the Herald of Free Enterprise went beyond the call of duty. Some of the crew lost their lives rescuing people, and that should never be forgotten.
What I did, anyone else would do the same thing. You know, it's just the way it takes you. If I was back tomorrow morning, or this happened the next day, you don't know how you're going to react. You just don't know how you're going to react.
It took me, I'd say, 2 years to be able to live again, to be able to live a normal day without not hurting and thinking about it all the time and how life could have been so different. See, I'd lost my whole family in the one day. I'd left as a child and then came back as an adult. And I knew my life was going to change forever. It would never be quite the same.